Hello, everyone. It is the final countdown, Chris. I guess the countdown's done, right? Because this is the last
interview from Manifest.
From Manifest, Chris and I are gonna go check out the rest of the show and take in some sessions so that we can report.
But we are
back.
going to come live with the Fast Five too.
We are going to come. That's right. We'll be live with Fast Five tomorrow, where we'll bring you the insights, some of the insights that we've gathered in our time here at Manifest. This, again, is OmniTalk Retail. I'm Ann Mazenga.
And I'm Chris Walton.
And we are coming to you from booth K15, which, if you're at the show, come swing by, say hello to us, and maybe, wave your hands around in the background or something.
Make yourself look like a fool in front of us while we're recording an interview, even though this is our last one. So now you just come, wave your hands, look like a complete fool.
Yes.
No one would understand why. But anyway,
we're a little
between
punchy.
us is who, Jeff?
We're a
Ann?
little punchy. Standing between us is Jeff Berry, the Chief Innovation Officer at Dot Foods. Welcome, Jeff.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're really excited you could join us. How's the show going so far?
It's great. Flew in yesterday and been one meeting after another straight through. So,
and where are you based, Jeff?
So I live in St. Louis, but Dot Foods is headquartered about 2 hours north of St. Louis in a little town called Mount Sterling, Illinois. So a town of 1,900 people, and we employ over 2,000 at that facility. So when they founded the company, they never thought it would grow that big in that little town.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
St. Louis is near and dear to our hearts. We were out seeing Schnucks this past October, one of the local grocers out there, so we love those guys. All right, so tell us about your role. Tell us about your job. Your job's really interesting. Your background's really interesting, too. You're kind of a guru on kind of the data insights and innovation side, so tell us about it.
So I would describe it more as a nomadic shit disturber than I would interesting, but no, I've certainly bounced around. So, my role, well, that is, right? So, I'm an innovation.
Nomadic shit, what was it?
I'm a nomadic shit disturber, right?
All right,
that's my job, right?
Yeah, right.
So, my job at Dot is to help us look at, 5 years over the horizon. Where is the world going? What do we need to be thinking about? What's hard, right?
Yeah.
What are the hard problems to solve? That's why a place like Manifest is a great place to come, because there's such a strong culture of startups here and new stage innovation and people trying to look over that horizon. So that's why I come here, and that's why Dot Foods needs to be here, and that's why I'm here. So,
will you share some Dot Foods brands that we might be familiar with?
I will share all the Dot Food brands with you. There are zero, because we are not a manufacturer of anything.
Okay.
Dot Foods is a redistributor. So, and Dot Foods does not stand for Department of Transportation.
Good to know, especially at this show.
That's right. The founders were RT and Dorothy, and like any good husband, he named the company after his wife, so he called it Dot Foods.
Oh.
So that's why it's Dot and not DOT.
Yeah.
But we are a redistributor, which means we sit between food manufacturers and for easy conversation like U.S. Foods or Cisco or a food distributor. Mm-hmm. And so we'll go to over 1,000 manufacturing plants and pick up their product and bring it in and then break it up. So U.S. Foods wants to order 5 cases of pickles and 10 cases of mayonnaise and so forth. They can order it all from us at one time, one truck, one PO, everything from us.
Man, that's crazy.
So 0 brands, but over 50,000 individual SKUs in our inventory at any given time.
That's unbelievable.
It's pretty wild. Yes, I remember we used to do business with you at Target when I was in frozen food back in the day.
And we do, yes. We hit Target DCs. We love our friends at Target.
Yeah, wow. And that was 10 years ago, so good to know. All right, so you've seen innovation from, like I was alluding to before. You were in banking, right? You were in.
I have been.
What else were you in? I wrote down you were in.
Anheuser-Busch, Nestle, yes.
You're at CPG too. So what are some of the do's and don'ts for you when it comes to doing innovation the right way?
So, do's and don'ts, right? So, do always focus on a problem, right?
Yeah.
Just because it's cool doesn't mean anything. It has to solve a problem, and
pragmatism.
There is a version of that, right? So we can get too wrapped up in the shiny object and what is the coolest new thing. And so, first and foremost, solve a real problem,
right?
And make sure that whatever innovation you're after is doing that. I just, when I was up on stage a few minutes ago, I was saying, focus, because there's 1,000 things that are going to come to somebody like me, and we can't do everything.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do everything, and so you got to pick and choose what you're going to do. And number 3 is, make sure you have, when you're working with somebody like me, make sure you have patience. because I'm working inside a big machine,
right?
And the machine's always going to try and slow us down.
Yeah,
that's just the nature of the machine.
Yeah.
And so while I want to go fast and the startups want to go fast, there's a patience factor that has to be part of that.
Right. I'm curious because we've heard a lot about innovation labs in the news recently. Based on that, being part of a larger organization, how do you think about innovation labs, whether they are a separate entity outside of the, like kind of working autonomously outside of the organization or adjacent to the organization, or just putting innovation into actual work? Where do you come down on that?
I think there are pros and cons, right?
Okay.
So I think, Pepsi's got they were talking this morning about Pep Labs that they're doing.
Yep.
Amazing, right? I think part of it for them, there's such and DHL maybe has one.
You are too.
They're so
right.
big. That's the thing, right? They're so big that they have to kind of isolate that.
Right.
We're a big company from a sales standpoint, but from a employee base, we're pretty small.
Yeah.
So 6,500 total employees for the whole company. And so I kind of view our company itself as an innovation lab where we can go experiment and test things. And I think at least in our case, that means that we have buy-in and we have, momentum and things like that faster because we're doing those things live in our own environment.
Yeah. It's kind of it got me thinking about kind of the economies of scale versus economies of scope. If you're leaning in the economies of scope, maybe it's more better served for an innovation lab type of approach than say maybe the opposite. Is that the right way to think about that?
I think there's definitely some of that for sure. I've been part of innovation labs before, and I think they're great early stage playgrounds because you get to do whatever you want, right? It's when you throw it over the fence that gets harder because you've been over here and no one knew what was happening.
Right. Yeah. And we've been part of them too and have been the roadkill of them too at a point in our career
no
as
doubt.
well. So, all right, so you were on stage at Manifest earlier today, right? How many times have you been to Manifest? Is this your first time or have you been here before?
Number two.
Number two.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Were you here last year?
I was.
Nice. All right, so what did you share on stage today?
So we were talking about AI, along with I think every single presentation that's happened here today at Manifest.
Yeah, I'm Chris Walton AI. It's nice to meet you.
Some version of AI. And I think, before we started, I told the moderator, I said, hey, we're going to pivot here because everybody said all this stuff about AI all the time. And so we talked about some of the things that you and I we were just talking about, which is kind of AI is great and there's 1,000 things you can do with it, but how do you engage those things? How do you get those things to move through an organization? And what are some of those things? So we talked a lot about that from a culture standpoint, how you can help navigate some of that stuff, how you can pick projects where you can win.
Right.
Where are some people who are not inhibitors that you can work with that'll be champions if you do small things with them? How do you try and say, well, we've got all this stuff today, and how do we do it and do it better than what we're doing today before we try and blow the doors open and do even more?
Right.
So I got to think, as much as we're joking about AI, as it being so ubiquitous around here and everyone talking about it and the names being everything.
But nobody knows what it is.
Yeah. How are you, I imagine though you're taking it seriously from your vantage point in your job in terms of its applicability to what you do. How are you looking at it and what are you trying to do with it?
Well, I think you have to be measured a little bit from my standpoint, which is, today it's AI. What was it a year ago or 6 months ago or whatever, right? There's always the next flavor of something and whatever is the cool thing. Yeah. And so while absolutely I think AI has a future and I think that we need to be on the front of where's it going and what can it do for us, we also have to have some realization of, hold on, right?
Yeah.
Like there's something else coming. I just don't know what it is 6 months from now that'll be all the rage. So
well, on that note, let's get you out of here talking about what you're excited to come from Dot Foods and in your role in 2024.
Yeah,
what's happening?
So lots of exciting things. We have I think it's 6 different pilots going right now with various startups and at various stages, testing everything from how do we automate fuel procurement or how do we have our trucks tell us what's wrong with them and predict what's wrong with them themselves versus them breaking down and us having to then fix them.
Right.
To new business models, to all kinds of stuff that we've got going on. So lots. We're at a great place at Dot. We started this journey about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're just at that point now where we built that infrastructure and we're starting to execute on stuff. So that's the exciting stuff.
Yeah,
and
especially. I was going to say, especially for an innovation person, to be able to actually see something come to fruition. I feel like you spend a lot of time doing pilots, and so to actually see something in the world make it out into the light is really wonderful.
That's always great, right? So. Sometimes you don't live to see that day, but
Right.
but
Oh, we know.
sometimes
Yes.
That sounds like a great job, though. So that's your job, is to shepherd all of that innovation that you just described, those 6 pilots through the organization, understand the impact they're having, and to decide, what you do with them ultimately with the lessons learned.
Yeah, and I would add to that, though, there's the front end, which is open that aperture and take in hundreds and thousands of ideas.
Right.
And say, of these, what are those few that we can go test, experiment with, and then try and execute in the organization.
Dang.
So there's that other side.
I want that job. That sounds like an awesome. How'd you get that job?
I have no idea.
No,
Stirring up
I
shit,
bet you
Chris.
kind of don't. It was
That's what he did.
probably serendipitous in some ways, but how did you get it?
It's the Brazilians' fault.
I have no idea what that means. but go ahead.
Explain.
So
Yeah.
I happen to work for one of the world's largest brewers at one point,
Okay.
and we may have been taken over
Okay.
by a different company.
Right. Yeah.
And they may have culled the staff a little bit,
Okay.
a lot,
Yeah.
and that left me with a bunch of people's stuff sitting on my desk, and it was all these new product developments, and still had to get done. And so I said, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
And so I was put in charge of a bunch of these stuff way back when, and that was the spark of the fire. They're like, well, this is kind of fun to invent crazy new things.
Wow. Awesome. That's
So.
great.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. We've so enjoyed, and what a great way to wrap up our coverage, our interviews.
Very
here.
lively.
I know it is.
Colorful metaphors abounded in this interview.
That's 100% true. We want to just give a big thank you again to Manifest for making all of the coverage from the show possible. Thanks again to Jeff for joining us and taking
Thanks for
time
having me.
Out of your day to share your stories with us. And until next time,
Be careful out there.